Here we are looking at the Rotary test on a Citation Ultra. There's a few differences in the Ultra test compared to the older citations like the Citation 2 or the Citation 5. So as I'm going through this cycle, I'll talk about some of those differences. We're going to start by turning the battery master on. So we get power up to the aircraft, and the first difference that I need to point out is that we have to have the avionics master on in the Ultra in order to do a proper rotary test. So we'll turn that avionics master on, and that gets all our avionics booting up. As those boot up, I can begin the test moving clockwise. That's how I like to do it. You can do this test either clockwise or counterclockwise, it doesn't matter. But I'll start with the clockwise position here. And when we move to the fire warning position, the first item I want to show you is that the test LED light illuminates. So that shows that we're in the test mode and that the indications we're receiving right now are test indications. The fire warning position is just like the 2, the 5, the Encore. We have fire warning lights on the panel, and both of those are illuminated right now to show that the bulbs have not burned out. The circuitry is continuous. And the next position here is the landing gear. To do a landing gear check, we're going to see that all 4 lights illuminate. So we have the 3 green and the 1 red unlocked light. And we're also going to hear the gear warning horn, and we should be able to silence that. You can hear the gear warning horn. You see the 4 lights. We can silence the gear horn and move on to the next test. Here is the battery temp position. This airplane has been upgraded to have a lead acid battery that doesn't have issues with thermal runaway the way the original NiCad batteries possibly do. So that test doesn't do anything in this aircraft. I'm going to skip past that one and move on to the stick shaker. The stick shaker is essentially the same test in both the 5 and the Ultra. In a Citation 2, you don't have a stick shaker. There is no stick shaker in a 2, so you won't see that in a 2. But when we move it to the stick shaker position here, what we're going to do is see the angle of attack gauge will cycle, and we will also see and hear the stick shaker on the yoke reacting. Cycled all the way up to a 1.0 AOA, and we can see the yoke is shaking. Now I'm going to move on to the thrust reverser position. When I move to the thrust reverser position, we get 6 warning lights, or I shouldn't even call them warning lights, they're just 6 indicator lights. The arm, the unlock, and deploy lights illuminate. So those are connected, they're not burned out. We also get a master warning, and the master warning is checking the circuitry to alert us if we were to get an unlock light in flight. We should be able to clear this master warning, and it clears the way it should, so that's functioning. The next item we get here, it's hard to see in this aircraft because of the just the cosmetic paneling that's in place, but the windshield temp position, that's a W/S temp position. When I move to the windshield temp, this is checking for the windshield temperature overheat. So we have a windshield bleed air switch. This is for the ice protection, allowing hot bleed air onto the windshield. And when I move the switch to the low or high position, we should get a windshield air overheat annunciator light. As I look up here at the annunciator panel, I'm going to move the switch to the low position. We get the windshield air overheat annunciator light. I move it back to the off position, and now up to the high windshield heat position, and we get that same annunciator light again, then back to off. Now moving on to the next test, it's the overspeed test. This is something that is different in the Ultra compared to the 2 and the 5, where when we flip to the overspeed position, this is where it's critical that we have the avionics on, because the overspeed horn will sound, and we have to have the avionics on to have the overspeed warning horn sound. And we also are going to look at our primary flight display, and we're going to see an indication of max airspeed. I believe that's 262 below 8,000 feet. So we'll see that airspeed up at the red line. We're also going to see 5,000 feet on the altimeter and a 2,000 foot per minute vertical speed indication. So now as I film the PFD, I'm going to move it into that overspeed position. We see 265, 5,000, 2,000 feet a minute on the vertical speed. And then I'm going to move on to the anti-skid test. Whoa, get that sound out of the way. That is a loud overspeed horn. What I want to show with the anti-skid test is this is also slightly different in the Ultra compared to the 5. In the Ultra, it's actually a little easier than the 5, where all we have to do is look up at the annunciator panel, and we'll see the anti-skid annunciator illuminate, and then we will see it extinguish after it runs through its test cycle, and if everything checks fine, the anti-skid test will, or the annunciator will extinguish. It took me a minute to get my hand twisted around the rotary switch there, but what I wanted to show is that the anti-skid annunciator light right above the ground idle annunciator light will illuminate, and then within about 5 seconds or so it should extinguish. Now the next position I'm going to move the rotary test to is the annunciator position. This last position here will check all of the annunciator lights, and it will give a master warning that is not cancelable. So let's take a look at that now. We can see all of our annunciator lights are all illuminated. We have the N2 snake eyes flashing at us if we were to overspeed the N2 turbines. Up here we have all of our main annunciator lights. All of these lights on the co-pilot side are working. We come down here, we see on the center pedestal that the autopilot controller lights are working. When we come up to the master warning, we cannot cancel it. And then when I move it out of the annunciator position, everything goes back to normal. We can take a look at the test LED to make sure that that's extinguished, so we're no longer in a test mode, and the rotary check is complete.